Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from the last meeting, have any additions or changes? And if not, do I have a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve?
Nicole makes the motion, is there a second? Second? I'll second. Seconded by Paul, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Next item is the bills. And payroll. Do you guys want to approve, unless there's any questions?
I move to approve the bills and the payroll.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Nicole. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. We have a couple of people here tonight. Are you guys okay with moving them up? I know some of them have some other stuff I'm sure they'd like to do.
I'm okay with it.
I'm good.
Okay, so we'll do the lagoon fencing bids first. We have two bids, one from DMB Contracting LLC and one from Walker's Lawn Care LLC. We got the same quote. So the one from Walker's Lawn Care is $48,700, and the one from DBM Contracting is $35,000.
Same. So I think I have the Walker's one.
There was more copies of that.
Okay. One of them, okay. Perfect.
Is there any questions?
I haven't seen the DBM one, but
Walker's was $48,700 and DBM Contracting was $35,000.
are they both the barbed wire?
Both are the same. Removal of old fencing,
Okay.
post fencing and gates, 3 strands of barbed wire, wooden quarter bracing, and inline bracing. Removal of the trees, includes all materials, labor, and removal of old debris.
And that's on both.
The difference would be, looks like walkers, it's additional for those other things.
Okay. And DBM is including?
Correct.
And is there anything for timelines listed for any of those on, just out of curiosity?
I don't think we had anything listed on there.
Okay, just kind of whenever? Okay.
It's pretty much what the bid sheet had said. I looked at it.
I'm thinking I saved it out of this top and not out of it, so I can get it though. The entire thing was copied onto Facebook, the entire big sheet was.
So it should all be spec'd out the same.
It, the only requirement for the bid was to put a bid in for the new fence. Taking out the old fence and taking down the trees was optional.
Okay.
Remove it anyways.
Any other questions on that? Zach, did you want to look at it?
The only one thing I don't see is the contractor's license for one of them.
to next time for proof reading. Oh,
And maybe they didn't because they've done work for us before.
Yes, that's pretty important to know on the subject.
Any thoughts, questions, comments? If not, do we have a motion or would you like to hold off?
What's your recommendation, sir?
Okay. So we'll put a table until our next meeting? Okay. Are we okay with that? All right.
We'll be ready to let us know next meeting.
Okay. Next, we'll go to AMCO. Brian? If
We
you
can
would.
hear you, but they can't hear you online probably.
You just gotta turn it on, yeah, because I didn't want it radiating out of there.
How's that? Better? Okay. President Reese, Commissioners, thanks for having me. My name's Brian Osowski. I'm the owner of AMCO Advisors. We are a registered municipal advising firm. We're registered with the SEC and the Municipal Securities Rule Board, which is required by federal law when giving financial advice to municipalities such as yourself. We also have a paying agent service called AMCO Bond Services, and we started that because what we're finding is a lot of issuers around the state of North Dakota were being overcharged for that service. Basically, you use a paying agent to pay the bondholders, so you've issued bonds for projects in the city, and then you have a paying agent service that makes sure that the bondholders get paid. Again, I'm not here to talk why they charge what they do, but your current provider, you're likely paying somewhere between $1,200 and $1,400 annually. Most paying agent services just charge a flat fee. Our flat fee is $400 annually. When I did an analysis for the city of Hillsboro on its two outstanding issues, and actually I underestimated a little bit because I did find out the city of Belfield is currently switching over to us. You actually pay $40 for every interest payment and $80 when you make an interest and principal payment for wire fees. So I didn't include that in my analysis. When I included that, the savings for both your bonds is almost $19,000 over the life of those bonds. So we've just been working with a number of issuers that we've worked with or other municipal advisors have worked with that have used your current paying agent and just said, hey, we could save the municipality some money if they switched over. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have, but I do see an opportunity for the city of Hillsboro to save some money on its bond issuance through its paying agent service. Our process is actually a little bit better as far as we can set it up on automatic payments if you'd like. In addition, Starion does require payment 15 days prior to, again, depending on if you want to wire us the money, how you want to send us, you can do it the day before your payment's due. So you're not, those dollars aren't sitting with someone else for a period of time. I guess I'll just open it up to any questions that.
Is there any costs that are upfront, like if we switch that we have to pay?
No,
Not at all?
no, we don't charge any, and again, we just charge $400 and that's it. There's no additional hidden fees, nothing like that. And again, just in comparison, there in that 19,000 might even be a little conservative because there are, and maybe Casey can, but there are just a number of different fees that are attached, and I just took the ones that were pretty blatant.
If you were to look at the spreadsheet that Brian provided, you guys should have seen it in the email. It lays out the fees that we are charged every payment. So we make payments to Starion twice a year, once in May and once in November. Every single time for like take series 2021, we're being charged $450 every single time. In addition, on the May payments, we're charged another $175. So,
And then Casey, do they charge you for the wire? Do you see, yeah, so you see either $80 or $40 each time as well.
right,
And
yeah.
I thought that was if you wire them the money, and then the city of Belfield clarified that for me, and it was, no, that's their charge because they wire the money then to the bondholders, and we
that's-
don't charge for that.
That's the same for us too.
Yeah. Yep. As far as work, just maybe one other thing I'll clarify, the work, you pass a resolution, I do, there's a couple of documents to sign. From there, we just take it over. We, like today, we actually converted the Kenmore Public Schools. We're in the process of converting them over, and I just got their bonds from Starion today, and then we take care of all that.
How come this says visited?
I'm sorry?
It's an example.
Just an example.
He asked why it says resident on the one.
Yeah, just if you wanted to set them up on a max, so we do we're the paying agent for a number of issuers around the state of North Dakota.
And you'd be able to take this over on our next scheduled in November.
Yeah, and that's a great question. This is actually perfect timing because you just made your May 1st, so we'd have more than enough time to convert it over so that November, your next invoice would come from us as compared to Starion.
And about how much time do you need? Because I'm sure they're going to want to digest this a little bit before I made a decision for the soon. But do you know about how much time?
I would say 60 days would be more than enough time.
I might need a little education on the whole bonds thing too, like, is this what we're paying for city staff and projects? Like, what kind of bonds are we talking
The
about?
two bonds that we have are one is for the Riverwalk development,
Okay,
and then the other one is for water
One of the water projects.
tower.
Yep, that sounds right.
so kind of like AKA note.
Right, the bank. So,
I'm like, I'm used to so many different kinds of bonds, so I'm like, which bond are we
Yeah.
talking about? Okay,
so we charge X amount of dollars for the bonds to the residents, and then it goes into an account.
okay.
And then if there's any left over, then it goes into the general fund that we can use it for. Like we've cleared out.
To build kind of the projects.
Right.
Okay.
And one thing to clarify, your bond payments would not change. We're not, unfortunately, interest rates, you're probably aware, have gone up, and so, 5-6 years ago when you were able to refund your bonds or refinance them at 1% or whatever, yeah, those days aren't here right now. I don't know if they'll ever come back, but your bond payments would stay the same. All we're doing is facilitating the payment from you to the bondholders. That's all we're doing. So your bond payments stay the same, all the bondholders are still the same, everything like that. All we do is just make sure that we handle the payment part of it.
So we're not charged those additional fees like we have with Starion.
Correct.
All right,
So it's a savings of,
okay.
over the life of the bond, so we would We wouldn't see the savings until 2028 in the one and then 2049 in the other.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it is savings, so.
So this is what we're paying now. Where is he saving his money on these things, do you know? What's going away or what's
So
changing?
if you go back to that email, from there, should be,
This one? This one here?
that one.
Okay, that's what I look at.
That'll show you the difference here.
Yeah, this is the stuff.
I didn't look at it.
and like I said, I did underestimate that because of that additional, basically $120 annually that you're paying.
I don't understand what it was.
Now we're gonna check a little bit. So do you guys want to make a decision on it tonight, or would you rather wait and have a little bit of time to digest and we can look at it again on the next meeting? But if you have any questions, I'll send ask Brian.
I think it's not a problem for him. Soon wait and get a little bit more educated till next meeting.
Do you have any questions for him?
Not off the top of my head, no. Once I get reading this more, so.
John?
So this would obviously be able to use this on future bonds as well.
Yep, Brian and I actually talked about that for, future financing for some of your guys' bigger projects, where you may go over, where you may need additional funding compared to what Bank of North Dakota can give you guys, since we're already tapped into that already, so.
Yeah, and the advising side that we do, one of the things that we also can do is actually go out and competitively bid your bonds to, and again, not to, Colliers would be a group that we would bid them to, but we don't strictly just bid to Colliers. We have a number of underwriters that we bid with, and we can go to Colliers. We would have them, we'd want them to bid on it, but just like a project that you would do, an engineer would go in and get multiple bids. We do the same thing on the financing side too, where you can go out and get multiple bids to help drive down that interest rate on that project. So that's something else. That's a little bit different what we do compared to Colliers. They just come in and buy your bonds. They don't go out and bid them with multiple people. They just bid them to their customers.
Right, so savings wouldn't be instant, it accumulates over time.
It
Which
is,
makes
yeah.
the impact more impactful at the end, like, per se.
It's every year. I
Kind
mean,
of,
yeah, at the end
But
of
I mean,
it,
like,
yeah.
it adds up till the
Correct,
very
yeah.
end, but
Yeah.
we don't start seeing it right.
We've just found more people taking advantage of where you can't find places to save money anymore.
Right.
It's just kind of a, when you can save, almost $20,000, it's kind of a nice option.
And I assume this annual fee is locked in today, so.
I'm sorry?
The annual fee is locked in, so.
Correct, yeah.
Nothing changed.
Yeah, we haven't changed our fee at all, correct.
But I meant that.
Yeah, we
go
will not
with you
change
to-
it. Once you're in, it's stated in our agreement that that's the annual fee.
Grandfathers in.
Yeah.
Unless there's a new one, and then I would assume it could be different possibly, but.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Just, again, it's a fair, I'll just put it this way, for what, it's a fair fee. That's why we've seen so many people changing. It just, when you're, again, I'm not here to talk poorly, $1,200 to $1,400 annually is, I know US Bank charges $500 annually. That's their annual fee.
And I just want to, you have, I'm not saying that you are, but there's people out there that will say one thing and then change it down the road, and I just want to make sure
Yep,
that we're.
no, totally understand. Yeah, no, it actually is in the agreement that that's what the annual fee is.
Any other questions for Brian?
I'm good.
If not, Casey might reach out if they think of anything. But otherwise, I'll put it on the agenda for next meeting to make decisions.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Brian.
Yep, have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
No, not a lot. Of course, Roy's still working on summer projects, ordering parts and everything to get all that. And a lot of things being ordered. I'm hoping Casey's keeping them in check. But it's all projects that we've talked about, so nothing new there that I'm aware of. So that's going okay. I will be leaving tomorrow for the Missouri River Energy Services Annual Convention in Sioux Falls. That's Wednesday and Thursday, so hopefully I'll be filled with all kinds of information. It always seems to be very informative going down there. So beautification, we have nothing new on that. And of course, we're looking at a fence in Railroad Park. I have had one person that came in and talked about how they felt there was a lot of people that were in opposition to that. Maybe if we're concerned about it, maybe we have to have some type of put on the agenda and have a meeting or whoever has for or against. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, if we would want to have an agenda item for that to give them the opportunity. Or
I think they could come to the beautification meeting where it's being pushed.
Yep. Whichever works. That way they have the opportunity. So maybe we make sure we put that on our agenda for the beautification then.
Railroad Park has been on there for a while, but we'll put it
Well,
on
but I mean for them,
specifically.
but specifically to talk about what they want to do there. So now that they kind of know what we're looking at on that HEDC meeting, they're concentrating a lot of time on Riverwalk and what they can do over there. And on was it 23rd or something like that, there was probably, I would say, 5 or 6 people from Hillsboro that went to the lead local course over in Mayville. I'd love to see something like that in Hillsboro, and I'd love to see all of our boards and commissioners, park board, school board, everybody, even our employees here, go to something like that. I think it's very informative. You learn a lot about parliamentary procedure, you learn a lot about conflict, dealing with conflict and everything. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through it, but it's always good to have a little refresher, and that's what it was for me, is a nice refresher on things. So thank you to NSU for doing that. So, and that's all I have at this time. Nicole?
I have nothing tonight.
The pool, hopefully we get it drained this week. Talked to Zach about that, and then next week they're planning to come in and paint, as long as the weather holds out and everything goes well. On the beautification side, the grant, we were notified that did receive the $5,000 grant from Trail County EDC for that. And then we had a request from Sanford if we could walk off farther down to the south for their EMS week. They were going to use the parking lot for the AirMed, but it sounded like they couldn't get that lined up with all the employees to shut it down, so they asked if we could block off to the south and make sure it's a little bit more open for AirMed to land. So, if you guys are okay with that.
I don't have any problem with it. We need a motion in
East
it.
side of Sanford.
On the east side of Sanford to the south, so it'd be kind of like in front of the school and Ben's Tracks.
Yeah.
Not block the intersection, but block. A motion to approve that.
I'll move that we allow them to have whatever distance they need going south in front of west of the elementary school, whatever distance they need. They need the whole block? Or do we
No,
have-
that's only like, I want to say it's 200 yards. Isn't it?
So I'll move that we add that to the previous road closures.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, second by Nicole. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries.
guys' thoughts on purchasing, shirts for our summer help that would have the city logo on it. Maybe one long sleeve fluorescent shirt and one short sleeve, just so residents know that they are employees of Hillsboro. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' approval. I know it's well under $1,000 to purchase, for 3 for sure summer employees, probably 4 for a while with Greggy. But yeah, I just wanted your guys' approval on that, if that's okay.
I think it'd be good that way that they're wearing high vis when
I think
they're out.
fluorescent is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Good OSHA standard right there.
mm-hmm. Okay.
Would you guys want to make motions and then it'd be something that we put into our handbook for next year?
I will make the motion to approve fluorescent shirt and long sleeve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Nicole, seconded by
Paul, any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Nicole.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Yes, for me. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you guys. We'll get those ordered up. Actually, 2 more things after that. My deputy auditor is starting tomorrow, so we're gonna have a pretty good training schedule for him for the next week and a half. If you guys wanna pop in and visit, please do, please do. And then I'm gonna be on vacation starting Wednesday. I'll be checking emails from anywhere between 6 and 8 in the morning. So if you need to get a hold of me, I'll email you at that time. So unless it's a dire emergency, then please get a hold of me. Those who have my personal cell phone, you know how to get a hold of me. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to old business. With right movement. I did see that Tim did take back the old proposal, but whether it was the sidewalk or not, I did go in and look back in the history, and it was never dedicated sidewalk on that side, so. I think it came from the bid itself is where it's seen the sidewalk.
The original bid, yeah. I noticed that too, when I drove by it, that it, from looking at the old things here, that it's not, the confusion I have though is, if I look over the proposal, I see removal of concrete, I see new forming, I don't see anything about the manhole cover. And if this isn't a sidewalk, my assumption is this would be personal driveway then. But I was hoping to see what the cost is for the manhole side, or is it?
Thoughts, John?
Your question is whether they have the manhole, fixed the manhole in there.
I just see removal and disposal of concrete. I see, preparing site formation and pouring. But I don't see anywhere in here of just resetting that manhole cover in here. And my concern is that, I understand there's no sidewalk, but I'm concerned that if this is a personal driveway, I'm not so sure I would want to set a precedent of replacing driveways.
looked at the plans originally, or when I went and looked through the box, it looks like because of the storm sewer that was added in, I assume because of drainage, they dropped the road down 4 inches on each side and then brought the crown up so that it would drain off. So I would assume that it's 4, maybe it was 11 inches last time.
And we had, if I remember correctly from one of the documents we looked at earlier, this, the way that this got sloped in the first place was from a NDDOT project. And they're the ones that did the slope like that, but broke a little piece of his concrete, so the city agreed to pay for that concrete upon his agreeance to replace all of that concrete 15 years ago.
Yeah, there's a driveway or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I think the city, wrote a check out for that to repair or replace that concrete then.
That wouldn't be the concrete we're doing work on now. That's the
No.
septic concrete.
That would be that slope piece. Is
That
what
would,
you
no, that would be
like.
the piece from there to the building. If, I understand that.
From the concrete that was done in 2008 up to the building,
Right,
that's where that
yeah,
material cost came from that. They had agreements on.
right.
JR, have you looked at that previous agreement? Did it say the entire driveway or just that portion of it?
It says the existing driveway.
The construction of ND Highway 200 resulted in damage to the existing driveway at right implement. However, the existing driveway was in poor condition prior to construction and repairing a portion. The landowner agrees to replace the entire driveway with the city paying for the concrete. The city hereby agrees to pay a lump sum amount to the owner.
So what's our legal liability if we did that?
Of doing something or doing nothing?
Doing, if we did something.
If you did something that I'm very hesitant as it sounds, this is private property that we are fixing. But if this was not private property, there was some issue that happened prior, it happened back in 2010, was it, give or take, whenever that letter was signed? And the payment from the city came, and the statute of limitations on any contract claim would have died off years ago.
What is it, what does right of way that don't have anything to do with that? If they're in the right of way, that's still considered as property?
Might be different, are we fixing it? It is a good question, is this city right away or is this his driveway? Back based on that letter, what we're talking about here, this is his driveway, the city just has an easement for their stormwater, I'm sure. That was put in.
I thought it was right of way, I guess.
If it was a sidewalk, I understand that'd be the city's right away, but here I can't tell. And if it was the city's, it'd be up to the city if they decide to choose to change it or not. Just like we decide if you change the streets out front here.
I wish Jason was here so we could get his input too, so we knew what his thoughts were on it.
But there again, they put in their, we didn't say that.
What's that?
It's on the bid that it says right away, not, didn't come up saying right away. Which I would assume it's easement, not right of way, based on, that means that we'd have all of it, the whole way up and down of right of way.
It'd be just like the city berms though. The city has right of way that goes up to the berms and past the sidewalks all through town. But we don't know that. That's the requirement in our ordinances, that the landowners take care of and maintain those.
So that would be the same in
Same
this.
situation here is the way I look at it, yes.
also look at it from the standpoint that, that should, unless there's an engineering reason why that slope was that steep, I think that should have been addressed at that time. And that it, you know, so I think it has nothing to do with the previous, fixing his sidewalk, or his, not sidewalk, but his driveway. In the back part, I think what he's mainly concerned about is he felt that that was put at that level, and it didn't need it. And you guys, were you there, were one of you guys there when Steve looked at it, and you claimed, and he said that he didn't know why it was done that way? Has there ever been anybody said anything why it was done that way that you know of? You know, so to me, that tells me that maybe it didn't need to be that high. If nobody could say, well, why was it that high? You know, and that's what kind of concerns me a little bit, is why, if there was an engineering reason why it was that high, I would say, hey, that's the way it is. But if there's no good logical reason why it should be that high, you know, I think that, you know, that's my concern, is I just don't,
But we didn't do the engineering for this.
I understand all that, but I also look at the standpoint that was anybody,
Maybe NDDOT has an answer, because they're the ones who did it.
I don't know.
I don't know either, like, that's
Who would have the answer?
North Dakota Department of Transportation, because they're the ones who put it in.
I don't even think that DOT would, because that was all on the AE2S plans.
No, so the way that the agreement was done when we did that was the state did all the road work, but we did the drainage and water that
Those improvements.
and we, because we wanted the wider road, we were required to pay anything over $2 million. So DOT covered up to $2 million of the road. We covered the rest of it, but they did all the engineering and everything for it.
Did DOT hire AE2S to do it?
AE2S just did the engineering for the water sewer. But if you go and look at it, it has, I want to say more, or Houston, maybe Houston, was DOT's engineering.
At this point, does it matter if DOT engineers did it or
to speak to their attorneys, but it's usually 6 years or less. In this case, and based on the letter that there is in this file that says money was given by the city to fix some part during this project, it seems issues did happen, they did come to a resolution, they agreed to it. I really don't want to get into the idea of working on things older than I've been an attorney, so. Longer than I've been in town.
Well, I'd really like to see if we're going to do it or not going to do it. We have a motion to put it on.
I'll move that we, I don't know how much money out there, but I'll move that we would, it kind of seems like it's a little bit over time and sort of thing, but I would move that we would pay for half, and he pays for half. But also at the same time with that, I'll move that we need somebody, whether it's Steve or who it is, somebody needs to be there and make sure that we can do this. That there's no problem with this, and who's gonna be placing that manhole? You guys, or?
Now you're getting into discussion.
Right. Well, that's part of my motion, that's the thing, is I want, my motion would be that we would have to have somebody from the city there when it's placed, and we'd have to have an engineer making sure that it was properly done. So I don't know if that's, I guess we can have the discussion and amend it 5 times, but I'll make the motion that we pay for half, and that our engineers are there to make sure that we can do that. The city is there, the city employees are there, or engineer, somebody when they are doing that, to make sure that everything is done right. And I guess we can, that's what I move to do, and I guess we need a second, have discussion, if we get a second.
For clarification, is that of the 11,500 or the
95.
9? Is there a second? Second? Second?
I just want to answer your question about setting it. I think it's in that 3384. So I went back and looked at the previous one. He had 200 for the manhole and 3184 for discrepancy. That being said, I'll second Paul's motion.
Been probably moved to second. Is there any discussion?
Can I just double check for clarification for the meeting minutes? Motion to pay half of 9,500, have our engineers there to make sure we can do that, and the city employees there to, what was the remainder of that, Paul?
This so that if the engineer felt that we needed a city, somebody, either the engineer or the city people, would have to be there when the work is actually being done to make sure that it's done properly.
To ensure work is done properly. Thank you.
JR, if we do this, should there be anything written instead of paying this?
I would say we probably set up another letter as before, saying this removes all liability for this project. Although we're doing what we did 15 years ago, I'd say do the exact same thing.
I would
And
just,
after the project is done, but
I would just clarify that it is from the street to the building. Because that's in like the gray area we're getting into, is that he's saying it's from the repaired concrete to the building was his responsibility, not this. And I think his big quorum is that was not done properly initially, in a safe manner to drive vehicles in and out. And his needs or requests were being totally ignored at that time, is what I'm thinking. Why he's looking at this. He's thinking that he never had the opportunity to be there when this was done, and it was just done, and he had to accept it. So
Yeah.
claim that he had talked to a lot of people since then and never got any satisfaction, so to speak. So it's kind of been ongoing. So
The thing I don't understand though is, like, he got paid a lump sum of money to do the rest of the driveway, so if it were an issue at that point, you would you know, why wouldn't we tear that up and then talk to the city about that slope at that time?
Well, because
Like,
you
city
can't do
wasn't
the rest of the
doing it.
driveway until that's fixed. That slope is fixed.
Yeah, but I mean, it'd still have to come back out, right, if it wasn't done right the first time?
No, the stuff that he was gonna repair,
Yep,
he couldn't get that slope right unless the stuff to the street was sloped right.
right,
But we wait 17 years
But-
to do that?
it's 15.
Well, from what I understand, I don't know if he's been waiting 17 years. It seems to me that he's been asking about this continuously for 17 years and nobody's even bothered to listen to him.
But from a legal standpoint, is where the city should come from, and from a business standpoint. If you fixed my car 17 years ago, and I ask you now today to fix it, you legally do not have to. But that's the same equivalent to this,
Right.
is what the city is doing. We have
But if
no
I did
legal
something wrong, I
requirement.
would fix it.
17 years ago?
Yes. If I did something, if you could trace it back to that I did something wrong, you know, you'd have a hard time proving that I did something wrong in your car.
Right.
Whereas this, nothing has changed in 17 years. So it's still the same way it was back then, and,
But Paul, the point is that there was acknowledgement that there was something done wrong back there. He should have gotten it fixed, he should have gotten it done back then. It should have been all taken care of at that point in time. And we can't go back and fix a ton of mistakes in the past, we gotta move forward. But I feel like if we do this, now if the guys accidentally hit something or do something, now we could be liable for 20 years. If we hit a sidewalk or a edge of a street and they trace it back to, well, this broke up because we hit it with a snowplow, are you gonna come back in 20 years and pay for it?
you know, depends on what they complained about initially, if they complained initially wrong. That's the unknown that I do not know, other than what he said, is that I've been complaining about this since day one. You know, and I can't verify that, he can lie to me, but from what I hear, this has been ongoing for several years. And, you know, so I think he's tried his best. You know,
Hello, Jason.
that's why we have the conversation.
But it still doesn't, like, yeah, maybe it was done wrong, but legally, how is it gonna put us in the future?
Yeah, I understand that.
Are you ready to pay for everybody's sidewalk? Are you ready to pay for my sidewalk if something happens, or my driveway if something happens? Are we gonna pay for Anchor's driveway? Are we gonna pay for?
Yep, I understand that, but that's why we have 5 of us here. So,
But ultimately, if we make a decision against what JR is saying, that could put us in court, and then it doesn't matter what we say, the judge is going to decide what we do. So where we're at, Jason, is there's a motion on the floor to pay for half of Tim Wright's $9,500, and then to make sure that A2S and our public work guys are there to make sure that that work is done right.
and then JR maybe wants to explain reliability, since he didn't.
So the
catch up.
discussion we're having is if the issue was this is something that happened, I believe it's it was around 15 years ago, the city has no contractual or legal responsibility for that anymore. It's the statute of limitations of any claim has died off, generally after 6 years. So the discussion point here is, are we still correcting those past mistakes? Or how does the city want to move forward with the situation? Also, some discussion is we believe it's potentially in the right of way. I actually don't know if we could set them without finding survey pins, but even if it was in the right of way, it'd be much like the sidewalks and berms in the city where the general landowner maintenance takes care of those items in our ordinances. The city doesn't go and mow the berm, the landowner does. Very similar idea.
Does any of this fall in the state variant?
When I looked back into it, in the original agreement, when they finished the work, they signed off and said the city is responsible for all maintenance from basically a section down there to the section over there.
Okay. So it doesn't fall in. It wouldn't have been something that it should have been addressed with the state when the construction was done?
It should have been.
there's nothing else in the minutes, we can't go back and say, well, this was discussed or this wasn't discussed. We don't know. We just know that we have the contract, that's it.
So it was determined that it is not a sidewalk, it's an existing driveway.
Correct.
And that was that agreement. So that was the discussion of it's been 15 years that, till now.
Nicole, did you ever hear back from that guy from the state?
I did not.
The difference to me is that I don't feel, you know, comparing it to what you're talking about, other things, if I hit something with a snowplow or did something like that. This, from what I'm understanding, this has been an ongoing thing since it happened, and it was never really addressed, and never really brought up to even make it to a vote, yes or no. And that's where the difference, how I view it is different than another, something else, and obviously, you know, JR has his opinion, and he's probably right, but that would be my argument, is that this was something that probably should have been addressed at that time, and either said yay or nay, that it should be done, and then we wouldn't be sitting here 15 years later, you know. And I, like I said, I don't know how many people we've talked to, you know. I know John has made a comment that was one of his things to get done, because it seems like it just got pushed off and pushed off. Well, how many other times was it pushed off? But then I also can argue the fact, well, why was it pushed off? you know, so.
Well, I can tell you that when I first came on the commission, Tim brought out stuff. This was not, he complained about this, but didn't say anything about doing this. He was complaining about electrical and other stuff, and I said to bring a bill or something to the city so that we can take care of it. That never happened. And I've been on the commission now 7 years in June. So for the last 7 years, it hasn't really come up.
Yeah, I've been coming for 9 years, I don't remember this either. Give or take.
Is there any other discussion?
Is it something that we could have them sign a release of responsibility or liability?
Yes, that was asked of, I'd have them do that, and it'd be very similar to a letter previously signed.
But it doesn't address the concern that he has about future, that Levi has about future, if somebody else has an issue. How do you handle that? Just to be clear on that.
Did you ever read that, agreement that they had for the entry and construction back then?
Did not.
Okay.
And that was signed by the city and DOT and Tim.
Yes. So we had read this. The construction of ND Highway 200 resulted in damage to the existing driveway at Wright. However, the existing driveway was in poor condition prior to construction, and repairing a portion of it would be difficult. The landowner agrees to replace the entire driveway, with the city paying for the concrete. The city hereby agrees to pay a lump sum in the amount of $2,926 to the owner. Said amount is to replace. Landowner will remove and construct a new driveway.
So we paid him that and he never did it? Is that?
I think his argument is that it's been good. If you did it, then everything can be done. Reach that thing being too high. And in order to replace the driveway, you need to hold that down.
His feeling is that up there where it's all Xed off, that's what he feels was the agreement. That's the area he feels is the agreement. In his head, that's the part they were talking about in the agreement he signed. He didn't feel like anything down on that other part, that was his responsibility, that he wasn't happy with the elevation that it was, and like I said, I've never been able to find anybody that says, why was it put that way, and that's why I put in the motion that the city would have to find out why that is that way. Is there a reason for it? You know, I know,
The only thing that I found was that in the reports, it said they were dropping the elevation 4 inches from the previous roadway and increasing the crown of the road, I assume for water runoff, and then they added in the stormwater, which wasn't in there previously. So I assume that's why it dropped down farther than it did.
Because I also think it's worth it to note that even if this doesn't go through, that if they did do something on their own, we have to make sure that, planning and zoning needs to be sure that that's addressed, to make sure that, that they can, first of all, when the engineers come back and say, well, this is why it was that way, we don't want you to own it. But if they come back and say, well, they're not 100% sure why it is that way, with the potential that way because they raised it up to line up with the current cement that was there. But if the cement would have been lowered down, would they have been able to lower down? We don't know all that. And,
My assumption is that they set the manhole to what the current elevation was on the previous concrete. Because if you look at what the new concrete that was put in, it's matched up exactly with the old concrete that was previously there. And then it gets to a point where they need to drop it off to get it into the new street.
and that wouldn't have, and normally that wouldn't have been that deep if they wouldn't have lowered it, would you say 4 inches?
Right, normally it wouldn't have been that way, which then,
Was the road just as wide though? Did they do anything with the widening of the road?
no.
In that picture in the back, it did show kind of what it looked like previously, and it's not a real good picture, but at least you can kind of see down there, toward the H down there, and you can kind of see that it's not, it's obviously that, I would assume that that's the biggest difference, is the street was lowered so much, and that's why it was so steep now versus back then. Because you can hardly see a drop off on the whole sidewalk, or the whole area there. It looks like back then. I don't know how old this picture is, but looking at the tractors, it's 2 years old.
I think the hard part for me is if I had an issue with someone putting in a slope like that, I wouldn't have signed an agreement.
Like I said, I think he was signing the agreement on that X part, is what he would sign. In his head, that's what he would sign.
But I
if he
mean,
knew in
like,
his head that he wasn't going to do it anyways until the first part was fixed, why did he
Right.
sign it?
I can't speculate anything.
I would have said you need to fix the slope first, because you also broke my concrete, but fix the slope too.
I would note the point of some of those statute of limitations is, this happened so long ago, that's why we don't know the details. And we're on a fact-finding mission to sort things out, and the best time to do it is at the time. Because this is where it becomes dangerous, of what precedent are you setting, of we're trying to fix a 15-year-old issue with facts that we don't know. What other issues has the city done, or citywide projects of issues that could come up, that we will have this happen again and again and again?
And that's the importance of us doing our due diligence on the front side. And, I mean, ultimately, I don't think this was our doing in the beginning. We ultimately are taking it over, but it wasn't our doing, it was DOT.
Yeah, it's DOT that did it as well.
DOT did it. There was some agreement made with DOT. And I think the city, it looks like, gave in and gave some money for the project where DOT didn't. Is there any other discussion?
I guess I just want to explain that this is important, if you have an issue with any future projects, anything like that, that you need to come to the city, make sure it's known officially, not just verbal speaking,
Make sure it's in the minutes.
make sure it's in the minutes.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? John?
No,
Jason? Nicole?
No.
Paul?
No,
And a no for me. Motion fails. Okay. Next item is, I assume John and Jay talk about the project proposal with Trail County.
I guess I wanted to look into putting
had that stormwater plan, or master plan completed, so I know we have it in there, because that is a big point of issue, is by Dakota Heritage Bank.
Sure.
At the time, we did bring it up with the parking lot thing, asking if we could potentially tap it, do that, but, well, the county at the time, and I don't know if they, I know they're wanting to do a parking lot there, but I know at the time, it was potentially like if you wanted your stormwater connection there and stuff like that, you pay for the parking lot, so maybe that's what I heard, I don't know for sure. So what I would do is ask them about that, but then
Well, they were
check
gonna
with
bring it up
Steve.
at their next meeting.
Good,
I just wanted to jump on it one way or the other.
yeah, so I would check with Steve, because we have that in the master plan.
Do you know if that would, that water really gets deep right there on the corner by the bank on the south side? Does that get deep because it can't drain out those drains, or does the pipe going north can't hold it?
It's not big enough.
It's just a low spot there, that holds a lot of water.
Well, I'm just saying, will that help alleviate some of that runoff to the south, because it'll run right into the main drain going north.
And that's where I need a little more knowledge.
No,
So what it looks like on the plan,
There's supposed to be a big,
that they were gonna put in a 42-inch pipe there. And then he said the inlet was the wrong size
yeah,
on the corner.
has to be bigger, right?
Had to be bigger.
That's what that would be.
From the last county plan, weren't they talking about doing diagonal parking there?
They were talking about putting a diagonal in there, yeah.
Yeah,
But if they put diagonal in, I would think that would open things up for us, because we're gonna have to dig it up anyway, to be a great time to do it.
well, that's what we were trying to accomplish was,
But there is a storm,
Proposed for that too.
well, no, there's a storm drain that runs down the middle of there, right on the north.
Right in their park, right in their garage.
Yep,
Available.
right. Because I assume they must have, being that they built that half street, they must have annexed in for that parking lot and closed the street down and moved it over. Because it looks like it's right underneath what Second Street would be.
Right.
But
yeah,
you want to tie in on the back side of Dakota Heritage,
Yes, on the north side of the Dakota Heritage, and shoot it right over that main road.
shoot it
In
in,
the middle of there.
right?
Is there any drains there right now? The closest one is to the south, the two on the Caledonia.
The church is real sad.
Where's the closest to the north?
On the corner of First and Second.
Yeah, you'd have to go around the corner, yeah,
if I remember it,
and that one's pretty high.
Yeah, I think that would be, you could never probably get it up there.
Years ago. That's pretty,
Because there's never any water sitting up there, is there really?
not now, not after that. I didn't.
It all keeps coming back this way.
I think it probably came up because I asked Jay when we did the streets if he was, that valley gutter was getting redone too.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
that's-
kind of where I started looking into it. Well, we did that spot down.
The valley gutter, which one?
right?
Behind Dakota Heritage,
Oh,
where the social service office is at, 'cause it's,
I mean, it'd be nice too, if the county does put in a parking lot, then, the water issues for people that drive through the park in that spot too, which is nice. If I remember correctly, that was one of the areas in town that was the heaviest for
We've
water
repaired
backup.
that many times, it just constantly gets.
Yeah.
It constantly holds water, it's a lot of crap.
Yeah, I've
well,
heard,
that's the one where they initially were talking about putting a pond on that,
yeah,
which isn't an option.
no.
Unless you want to.
right,
But the next plan that was in play was putting in, if we can't do a pond there, they figured out that we could potentially put a larger
Larger
pipe
pipe.
down First Avenue
yep,
and then taking it back to the river.
yeah.
So which would tie in on the corner there. So maybe talk to Steve and see what are some options.
Sure.
In the meantime, the county will have more information what they're,
Yeah,
if they're gonna do anything at all or not. So,
I just started briefly talking with them, just trying to.
because if they're planning on doing anything in the near future, we could hold off, but if they don't have no idea what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been about a year since we,
and they haven't really talked about anything, gonna bring it up tomorrow.
I had, planning and zoning, we had asked Steve to find out what the process or what there was, because it's been on our agenda, because they brought it up. And Steve reached out to him, and they said they were bringing that back up to do that, and then also looking at ownership of County 11, so. Or Caledonians. Yep, check with Steve.
Thanks, Jay.
Next one we have is a permit for Hillsboro Senior Citizen Center. I have a motion to approve. That's a raffle permit.
Double check, just to be
No,
sure.
like that.
T's are crossed, I's are dotted, looks good, looks good. Just one question. For the application, is this an annual thing? Like, so July 1, 25 to June 30, 2026, right? Okay, just so I know that the dates weren't backwards.
No.
Okay.
And that aligns with the state, so.
Nice. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll make a motion to approve this one.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved by Nicole, seconded by John. Any other discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries. Next item is the demo grant application for Cindy Garza.
Was this where she needed help filling this out, or you guys did that already, didn't you? I see
She
this.
requested help.
Okay, I see.
Yep. So I filled it out as best as I could. So.
And this just, help with the takedown and, removal?
Yep, it would be her son's garage next door. So then I let her know that she would need to get adjacent property owners to sign off on it. And she's the only neighbor over there, with the exception of, there's an empty lot. John, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're up there. But she said the lot next door is empty, and then there's the same family that owns that lot down there, so.
I guess what's the definition of adjacent owners, because I think Nelson's bought up to his property.
Well, it'd be any property. I mean,
With it,
could be, well, you were adjacent. Could be adjacent.
there's only
Yep.
senior's property.
And across the street, and even though it's a lot, it's still, it's owned by that person who owns the house right next to it. So,
Yeah. Because Joe and Amanda own that rental house across the.
right, and they bought that property that sits on.
Yeah. So then she would have to get those signatures then?
Correct.
Okay.
Do they need three bids to supply to?
No, did it say on there? we
Yeah,
had
it says it on 3. Applications must be accompanied by 3 bids for complete removal and cleanup.
And I was gonna mention that too, you got 3 bids.
I guess it-
We haven't followed that on plan.
well, that's what I was wondering.
You
I
didn't
just
on the last-
noticed
We
it.
did not.
Well, the costs, I think, are so high that even if you probably wouldn't get it
Yeah,
for
'cause
$4,000.
it's like, it's very,
No
I
matter
mean,
who did
for
it.
students, it's very low.
In talking with Sonia, she wanted to allow the fire department to use it as a practice fire, and then bring in a company to clean up afterwards. So that's ideally what she would like to do.
Okay.
And is there a plan to rebuild?
She didn't state that. I'd be,
Part of our requirement.
No, but,
I'm
we need a
just
building
saying,
permit.
but normally,
never thought of that before. Usually, we're tearing them down their buildings, you know.
right, and most demo grants have either been, they're tearing one down to rebuild,
Right.
or it's been a fire, or
Yep.
something like that, that's put it into disrepair. But I would say for sure they need to get more signatures on this.
Okay.
Can we approve it deeming the signatures, or,
We could, yes.
because I'll make a motion to approve with, after signatures have been completed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Probably move to second. Paul?
So are we gonna make, do we make sure the fire chief and everybody signs off on all these accordingly? Because
I
they're
mean,
listed
it wouldn't be
here.
a bad idea.
Well, they're listed here, that's why I just wanna make sure, when we wanna, so we need at least 4, well, unless there's more than 4 adjacent property owners, I guess. I don't know why there's 4 that are listed. You know,
Could be across the street
Yeah, right.
and then either
One,
side.
two,
I'm just saying, is there enough, is there enough? What if there's
Behind?
5 or so? How about the bid part of it?
reword that.
Are we gonna have to have 3 bids or?
I think this is the first time I've ever seen the cover letter come with the application. That's probably why we didn't catch it earlier. I remember seeing that piece.
Probably. I think it was on the last one, but we probably didn't look at it, we just looked at the applications.
Well, like I said,
I think Paul has it still.
you go back when this was put into place, you could maybe get one removed for $2,000 or $4,000, but nowadays,
Yeah.
you could, and I think even Jim, before he left, even, had made a comment, and maybe you could clarify that we really probably shouldn't look at upping that price just because it doesn't really put a dent on demos and a lot of things, so, you know, that grant, so.
Well, and how it was in the past, there was $2,000 put into the fund. Or at least this is my understanding when I came on, is that it was $2,000 in this fund, which I don't know which fund it is.
Sales tax, I believe.
Yes. But we set aside $2,000 every year for this, and they get 1,000, we'd maybe get 2, so each would get 1,000. And then at the end of the year, if nobody used it, then we have to give 2. But traditionally, we've kind of given 2,000 out in the last few years, just because we know that. But there is no, on here it doesn't say anything. But like Paul said, I think it was mostly that the building was getting taken down and that the bid part of it was make sure that somebody wasn't paying $500 for it to tear down.
Yeah.
They were getting $2,000 out of it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's the case anymore, like Paul.
You'd have to have 3 small buildings.
Yeah. Maybe.
And you'd have to do it yourself too, so.
So we got a first and second. Is there any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
A yes for me. Motion carries.
Should we look at revisiting that grant? Doing no fuel updates or not in the future?
We should, yes.
Can you put that on the plan sometime?
Yes. Both of us will. Next item is change the signature cards. We need a motion to approve to remove Sarah and to add Chris Molback.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Moved by Nicole, second by Jason. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries. We already did the lagoon fencing. We're holding off. And Casey, will you make sure to send those 2 bids to everybody so they can look at it? Next item, that is the complaint for mud and gravel. The sign that is anonymous. It's really hard to read the signature.
Is there an ordinance against backing up gravel on the street?
Yes.
No, there's a county one.
There
I'm assuming the DOT probably doesn't like it, I'm assuming it's 200 there.
The DOT probably don't mind as much as our city employees with all the gravel being dumped into the sewer, other stormwater. Trying to keep it clean, yeah.
I can reach out to Anchor again and let them know, but you did want to move on this since there is no.
I'll move that we do. That we address this.
Is there a policy that we create, say that they needed
obviously we get rain and then we get mud and we've got so much traffic. Are we sure it's just Anchor, or this could be farming equipment? 81 gets heavily trafficked with mud. I mean,
Yeah, but everything would be
What do
down
we-
before it got there. There's no gravel close to anything that I'm aware of. in that area.
Sugar beet can drink it quite a distance.
yeah, it
That's a
just
lot.
says tracked into streets, so I guess when I think into streets, I'm thinking, how far out from where's it coming from, where's it going,
Sugar beet season, how many sugar beets get spread?
But there also is the piles of green materials was back on the list.
Yeah, and that's the only place grain comes from?
And I think part of, it's not just going on the street, it's green being left out
Okay.
around the property.
I was just curious, I don't,
I assume, I haven't. In the past, we did talk to them about it and asked them to put a few things, and there was dust issues and so.
yeah.
I don't know if you need a motion or something, Nate, but or even if we can send this back, I guess, and see if they want to put their name on top of it. But on another note, we've got to do something about that mess. That's somebody, at least at the very least, somebody needs to talk to them and say, hey, they're kind of pushing this. I don't know. If you need a formal complaint, I guess I can fill one out, but it's getting bad down there, so,
Is that a motion, Paul?
yes.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second? Motion dies for lack of second. If you would like, I can reach out to Everett and talk to him.
It doesn't look like anybody wants to, so let's leave it be.
All right. Is there anything else? Anything from the citizens before we go into executive session? Anything? Okay. Anything else from the commissioners? You guys can stay if you want.
I did just think of something. What are the chances can we get another down by where Woodland Park is? Can we get an estimate or to put a sign there by the hospital parking lot directing people to Woodland Park? Would that be a big thing, a big request? Off of Caledonia, right. Because there's just one sign on 81 and it really doesn't, I'm just thinking we got such a great park down there and all the people that come to town might not even know it's there, but when they go to sporting events, maybe we could put a nice sign there that, to let people know that's down there. I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks. If I need to make a formal motion or whatever, I sure can, but it's not on the agenda or anything, but you guys.
John, you want to see about a price?
What's that?
See about a price for Woodland Park?
To put a sign.
To put a sign.
Yeah.
You need two signs. You need one
Well-
on Caledonia and then, to turn, that would put you right into the park on Third Avenue there. But then you need another one, because the other sign you're talking about is on the corner there and it just shoots you down the street and it doesn't tell you to turn off to go over the bridge to the park.
And you can look at that one, but my main concern is the one on Caledonia, so. And if it's cheap enough, I guess you can do another one, but that's my main concern.
Everyone always thinks. Can you feel like some of that, John?
Thanks, John.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Then do I have a motion to go into executive session at 8:01? No, it's always.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss, do we have to say what we're discussing? Land, LOI, Baedeker property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved by Paul, second by Jason. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
John? Yes. Jason?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries. Stop recording.
Thanks, Barney.
If we have a motion, we'll let you know.